Welcome to another episode of the Locked In Podcast, where we talk about everything sports, entertainment, and life. And on this episode, which is episode number 2, we're going to be discussing my favorite football team, the Los Angeles Rams, and a season preview for the Rams for 2023. And with that being said, we're going to start this thing off with a recap of last year, 2022, which was a horrendous season for the Rams, very unexpected, and basically started off rough from the jump. So let's dive right into it. The Rams, going into last season was the defending Super Bowl champions, as everyone knows. Started off rough. The very first game against the Bills was just injuries on the offensive line. Stafford got banged up. Bad offense. Defense kept getting beat deep. Like anything that could go wrong in that opening game last year did go wrong. So the 2022 season was basically a colossal failure. Finished the season 5-12. And from my perspective, it was due to injuries. Like, let's be honest. When your whole offensive line is injured between games 1 and 3 in the beginning of the season last year, you're going to struggle on offense. Then when your starting quarterback goes down, your starting receiver goes down, one of the best defensive players ever goes down, like, you're pretty much going to be in line for a real horrendous year. Bad thing for us was, we spent so many times giving up those first round draft picks. We actually finished in the bottom 5, and we didn't even have a first round pick to help ease that 5-12 pain. So as that went to the Lions, I believe. But 2022 was, horrendous. They actually had about 26 players on injury reserve towards the end of the year, plus the players who were, that was like listed as day-to-day, week-to-week injuries, nagging injuries through the year. So a lot of injuries played a part in that season last year for the Rams, which leads me to the 2023 NFL draft. Now, surprisingly, which I didn't even know before the draft happened, that the Rams had 14 draft picks. So with that being said, those 14 picks in this past April's draft will help them with the future, getting younger talent. Hopefully that talent lives up to their potential, things like that. They pretty much address every need, including quarterback. They addressed some running backs, receiver. They addressed the O-line with their first pick in the second round. They addressed the defensive line, the secondary. Every phase of the game they addressed in this past April's draft. Now it's just about that coaching staff getting those players to play above expectations, especially since this is going to be a young football team. I think I saw something where it's like out of 56 players, 42 of them are in their first or second year right now. So this is going to be a young football team, and it's going to be some ups and downs, some growing pains this coming season. But my personal opinion, out of this past draft, there are 3 particular standouts that I'm watching. One, the offensive guard, Steve Vila, I believe. He's a guard out of TCU. He was the first, one of the first pick in the second round, I believe, for the Rams. And he was very touted. He's a big offensive line body that they desperately need, especially to get that run game started. So the next one is Byron Young out of Tennessee. He's an edge rusher. They need somebody on their line to help Aaron Donald out, because you're going to see double, triple teams to Aaron Donald on a nightly day basis, game by game. Like, I'm surprised they don't send like 4 people at Aaron Donald. And if he's coming back off that injury healthy, fresh, he missed most of the season last year, I expect him to pick up where he left off after that Super Bowl year, like wrecking havoc. So you need somebody along that defensive line to help free him up. If not, if he is taking double teams or triple teams, you should be the one getting to the quarterback, because you only have to work on that one man that's trying to stop you. That's how I look at it. Then also on the offensive side, They drafted out of the fifth round from BYU a receiver called, what's his name, Puka Nachua. I looked at a couple of his highlights on YouTube. Dude makes a lot of spectacular catches. Um, they're deeming him Robert Woods 2.0, but we shall see. But if he lives up to his hype, he should have been an earlier pick. He was a fifth round pick, but he should have been second, third round. But it was a lot of injuries that held him back. So if they could get a hold of him, keep him healthy. I've heard out of training camp so far that Stafford has had a good connection with him. He's working out with Cooper Kupp, getting reps with Cooper Kupp, learning from him. That's a plus. As well as Van Jefferson, working with Van Jefferson and other starters, because he's working with the ones in training camp. So that should tell you right there that he's going to be actually used quite a bit this coming season. And so we need everything we can from him. Go past his high expectations and keep that offensive rolling. So that's the draft. A lot of young players coming in, and you can't really expect much from a young team that they're going to have this year. So my expectations are not going to be high for the Rams this year. A lot of Rams players, a lot of Rams fans, they are like, maybe they tanking for their quarterback out of USC. Me personally, even though it's a young team, I don't see them being that bad of a team to where they're going to be drafting number 1 or number 2, and most likely Caleb Williams will be a number 1 overall pick. So you're talking 2 to 3 wins for that number 1 pick. If anybody's going to get it, it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals, and what I believe, like the Cardinals with Kyler Murray being out, I think they most likely would get the number 1 pick, and they'll have a decision to make between Caleb Williams or staying with Kyler Murray. But we shall see with that. But back to the Rams. The 2023 roster. I want to talk about that for a second or for a moment. The stars are returning. And what I mean by stars returning, like I said, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, your 3 core stars, all missed chunk of time last season. So with them missing chunk of time, getting their body right, getting their, the injuries, recovering from injuries, like basically away from the game for more than half the season for the most part, they're going to come back, fresh, ready to go. Hopefully, like no nagging injuries, come about during training camp, and they can, pick up where they left off for their Pro Bowl seasons, especially Kupp. It's crazy. Kupp missed basically half the season and was still top 10 in receptions and receiving yards. So that man is just all world. And you got Aaron Donald, that's a monster. He came into camp looking even stronger. So I'm pretty sure he has a lot on his, a chip on his shoulder to prove people that he still got it. Then Matthew Stafford. Everybody's saying that he's done. The injuries. He had a spinal contusion. If you listen to these people on the media, they're saying that, he can't come back from it. He's washed. They should have traded him. But it's like, okay, he can still throw that ball. And if that O-line is good in protecting him, I think you should watch out for Matthew Stafford to have a bounce-back season. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have an MVP-type season, but I'm thinking anywhere from 30 touchdowns, 35 touchdowns, 4,500 yards. It's going to be some interceptions. That's what you could get used to with Matthew Stafford. So he might have like 15 interceptions, might lead the league in interceptions. You never know. But watch out for Matthew Stafford to come back strong. So, like I said, the stars are returning, and I think that's going to be a boost to the Shining Base, offense, and then also the defense. Not only the stars are returning, but the role players are returning. Now, you usually use that term role player in the NBA, but I use it in the NFL too, because they might not be stars, but they play a good role on the team to put the team over the hump. So any way you slice it, it's a role player. And we have some good role players, in my opinion, such as Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson, Cam Akers, Tyler Higbee, Jordan Fuller is going to be returning from injury last year. 4 core role players that I believe, that needs to take it to another level to help the Rams bounce back and have a good season. Not the bad season that everybody, expect him to have. I think USA Today has them at the over and under 6.5 wins, and I'm like, mm, I give you about 8.5 over under. But yeah, the role players are going to be key. Those specific four, in my opinion, you got offense and defense, especially Jordan Fuller in that safety position because you're going to have basically two young corners in Kobe Durant and Kendricks on the outside starting for the first time this year. He's basically the veteran outside of Aaron Donald on their defense. It's Jordan Fuller. He's won the Super Bowl. He's been there. He had a broken foot, I believe, last year that kept him basically out the whole year. So now he's back at that safety spot. And he's still a young dude. I think he's 20, 25, 26. But he still had a lot to prove himself. He was started out his career great, but then injuries started creeping in. So the core role players that I mentioned, once again, Cam Akers, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, Jordan Fuller. Watch out for them to have some breakout, bounce back seasons. Speaking of breaking out, the one player that I believe will have the most success in a breakout season would be Cam Akers. Now, Cam Akers, there's no secret, him and McVay clashed last year to the point to where he was almost traded. And luckily, they didn't trade him because towards the end of the year, he started picking up steam. He was running that ball. He was top 5 in rushing the last 6 games of the year. And that was behind a crappy O-line with Baker Mayfield at the quarterback. And if you know me, you know how I feel about Baker Mayfield. I think he's pretty much washed up and done. But Cam Akers really improved towards the end of the last season. So him getting a full training camp, he knows he's the number one guy this year. There's no one behind him taking his reps because, as you might have heard, Sony Michel has officially retired. I don't know why he came back to retire 2 weeks later, but it is what it is. But this is Cam Akers' running back group. He's the starter. It's his job. And then he's bulked up, added some more muscle because he knows he is going to be the focal point of the offense. McVay has come out and said that they're going to lean on Cam to be that centerpiece. And that'll also help Stafford so he doesn't have to drop back all the time, taking those unnecessary hits. And as long as Cam can improve on his pass blocking, as well as his catching out of the backfield, he put those pieces together with his breakaway speed. I think he's in line for a great breakout season finally. When he first came out as a rookie, he had injury problems. I think he tore his Achilles and he ended up coming back that Super Bowl year, towards the end of the season. And he really didn't do much, but, he's coming off an Achilles injury. So last year, it was more of like managing that Achilles injury, but at the same time, he wanted to be a full-time starter, wanted all the carries, and then he clashed with the coach. But it seems that all of that is behind them, and they're moving forward. So we're going to see. But I believe Cam Akers will have a bounce-back season and break out as one of the top running backs in the NFL this year, especially in fantasy. And we haven't had one of those since Todd Gurley for the Rams. So hopefully he can stay healthy and run that ball, keep Stafford healthy, just add a dimension to the offense that we really haven't had in a couple of years since Gurley left. It's mostly been about the passing game for the most part. And that will, in line with help Cooper Kupp stay healthy because you're not forcing 15 to 18 balls his way every game. You're mixing that run, take that pressure off of the receivers as well. Get the tight end involved with the play action pass, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to Cam Akers' season this year. I think he's going to do big things. Like I mentioned earlier, 40-plus young players on this team. When I say young, that means first or second-year players. It's 46 of them, 42 between 46 players, first and second year. That's a lot of young players. So you're banking on young players getting down in the playbook, grasping the system, and developing at a rapid pace if you think you're going to have a very good season. Like I said, I don't expect nothing monstrous like a 11, 12, 13 win season. I can see them getting possibly between 8 and 9 wins. And then when the NFC is a weaker conference this year. So 8 or 9 wins might get you into that last wild card spot. You never know. So we shall see. I think that 8 or 9 wins would be a good spot for them. Also, another player to watch out for, Ernest Jones. He's now the official starting Mike linebacker for the Rams. He was an understudy last year of Bobby Wagner. Wagner had a lot of good things to say about him, as he's going back to Seattle. So I think with the Rams, they really feel like Ernest Jones has picked up a lot from Bobby Wagner last year, and he's ready to take that next step and being the lead dog on the linebacker group for the defense. And they would go big. So you got Donald on the line, Ernest Jones in the second level with the linebackers, Jordan Fuller at safety with the two young corners. You're going to need somebody to step up. Ernest Jones, outside of Donald and Fuller, has been in the defense the longest. He knows the playbook. He knows the defensive scheme that they're going to be running. He's had ample enough time to pick up everything. He should be the one having a breakout season right for the Rams at linebacker. We've been going outside of Bobby Wagner last year. Before that, I can't remember the last great Rams linebacker, probably London Fletcher. Some would say St. Louis version of James Laurinaitis, but it is what it is. But Ernest Jones should be their next great linebacker for the Rams. If he plays to his potential, he's a very knowledgeable linebacker. He could read coverages like night and day. I've studied some of his film as well, and I think he's in line to shock a few people this year. So that name, Ernest Jones, watch out for him to have a breakout year as well, along with Cam Akers. So, as a recap, like I said earlier, the LA Rams 2023 season, I do not believe will be a god-awful year. There's no 2 to 3, 4 win season. I think they're going to get at least 8 wins, at minimum 8 wins. It's going to be a young team, so I don't expect no Super Bowl. I don't even expect 2 wins in the playoffs. If just making the playoffs, well, I'll be fine with that. Be honest with you, I'm not going to be no delusional fan, unlike Cowboy fans. But LA Rams 2023 season is going to be an average year. So we shall see what happens. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Locked In Podcast, where we talk all things sports, entertainment, and life. You have a great rest of your Sunday evening. So I'll holler at you next time.